So what is freedom?
Okay, hello out there. I'm dealing with the complex issue of freedom. First of all, it comes to me as an idea and also as an ideal, just thinking about that word. To me, it has many different meanings, many different lenses you can peek at it through. For my life, I always looked at freedom as a state of unattachment or disengagement from something that's holding you, breaking loose, being unattached, being free. And so it comes to mind in the physical sense that freedom is something that is longed for by everybody, and maybe one of the top, if not the top value in most people's lives. It's hard to put a word to it, and I like to maybe help illustrate something about it through my own life. When I got involved in the civil rights movement in 1963, the slogan was "Freedom Now." And freedom now was an objective that maybe have been looking back on a highly idealistic objective of freedom now. But in many ways, it was real and total and instant as well, because to be engaged in the fight for freedom, which may be centuries away for a whole nation or a collection of people, but in order to be involved in that fight, you had to separate yourself from everyday circumstances, normal day-to-day habits and activities and operational procedures, and take a leap, so to speak, into an unknown. And to me, that required a sense of faith, a sense of trust, a sense of hope, and even audacity to go beyond something that doesn't really exist. And so looking back on it had a kind of a troubling effect on me, because freedom was a sense of equality, and equality meant that everyone had the right to vote. And if there were 200 million people in the United States of voting age, then everyone should have 1/200 millionth of that presence, that power to vote. That's something that doesn't exist anywhere, even today, and maybe never. And so it was a dream or the idea of a freedom where people were equal and enjoyed all the fruits proportionally that are available to all the citizens. Something that became a point to rally around, to strive for, to vote, to put your feet and arms and legs into action to attain. And so on many levels it was a goal for a collective well-being, but in reality it was an action for people to take to move the struggle for freedom forward. So you had to disattach yourself from your family, your school, your home, your circumstances, to go beyond that, to get involved in a fight. So it's on two different levels where I see it. But we quickly grew to move from talking about freedom to about liberation and about power and about self-determination. And all of those, to me, are aspects, ingredients, or essentials for freedom. And so self-determination, liberation, the power to build institutions, to design laws and policies, required a level of activity and a level of consciousness and a level of organized force to move forward. And so the fight for freedom was kind of an elementary way of getting people involved, but in the real practical world of making things happen, it had to be about collective action, about unity and working unity, and about striving for common goals, even strategic plans, sharing vision, shared ideas, a shared mission. So even in the organization of SNCC, which is the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, there was a utopian flavor in that organization where we had to have pretty much 100% unity on a particular policy to go forward. And sometimes meetings would begin at 7 o'clock at night and end at 2 or 3 o'clock that next morning, if they would end. And so there was a naivety, I guess, a sense of ultra-democracy, I presume, and a fight for equality in the ranks, saying if we're going to fight for freedom, we got to practice freedom. And so, but it being effective as an organization to move forward, to galvanize people, to unite, to make actions and implement steps require more of a central, organized leadership to guide and direct and help sustain the fight. So having a sense of a headquarters, to having a sense of a hierarchy, to having a sense of a chain of command, having a sense of an order in order to get freedom was something we agreed to. And so it became a honed in kind of ultra-democracy to more of a democratic centralist approach. So I guess freedom requires giving up something and becoming attached to something to achieve something that's unattachable or totally unlimited. And so freedom in a high school, idealistic, universal sense is something that's not real, not actual. So even in our ordinary breathing or living, we are under the domination of natural forces and cause and effect and gravity, things like that, that limit our actions and limit our movement. So basically, I like to use, I think the term freedom is used often too loosely, and in a real practical sense of action and organization that has to be honed in and refined and developed and enhanced to help things move forward, to make progress, to make action make ideas become action. So moving from civil rights to human rights, moving from strictly voter education to forming Democratic parties and Black Panther parties and our African liberation parties was a necessary step to go forward. So that in itself, the struggle of everyday living is something we recognize. I'm the third generation of my family that was born free in the United States. My great-grandfather was an enslaved African in East Texas. And one of the things he did once freedom was declared, the abolitionist movement had succeeded and emancipation took place, we were free to move, to develop our own land, develop our own institutions, to develop churches, schools, businesses, homes. And that required a responsibility. So having freedom and not being responsible, being accountable for what was in front of us to do for our families, for our children, for our community, required a kind of discipline and a kind of honing in to what could be accomplished step by step. So it wasn't just fly, take to the skies and become free and tripping down blueberry path, but actually hard steps that were met with resistance by white supremacists, by old habits, and by selfish deeds and greed. All this kind of thing hindered the struggle. But through that struggle was born some institutions like hospitals that my grandfather built here in Dallas, like churches, which they contributed to build, like schools and programs and curriculum and businesses. It required a collective action. So I'm seeing, I'm standing on the shoulders of people who were not free to speak out, to build their own, to go their own ways. And I have a little bit more ability and capacity to move, to think, to speak, to create now because of those things. So I see it more as an evolving, ongoing effort to create a better sense of well-being in an individual as well as in a collective body, a neighborhood, or a county, or a tribe, or nationality. So I see freedom is an elusive phrase in many ways. It's something that's just ideal, but reality requires the movement to be made practical in terms of priorities, in terms of plans, in terms of goals and actions and objectives and programs, let's say. But I'd like to go even a little bit further than that and talk about the existence of invisible forces, invisible hands at work, something in terms of causing life to be and for eternity to be something that's real. Is another freedom. And to me it's a sense of awareness, a sense of consciousness that I am in the world, but I'm not of the world. That I am in life, but I'm not of life. In the same way that I heard the poet Rumi says that the ocean pours through a jar, the mouth of a jar, and in some ways lives inside a fish. So to me, that simply means that I am something in me and something that I am in are simultaneous. So it's recognizing that there is commonality, there is a spirit, there is a force that is present in others outside of myself. And so there's a drive and interdependence because I am also that other. And so I'm happy to say that there are indigenous ancient beings and civilizations built in Africa and in South America, for example. The Inca were ones who lived by the creed that you are my other. And in Africa, Ubuntu means simply that I am you and you are me. And so having said that, my freedom depends not on just my well-being and my health, but it depends on the well-being and health of my others, my community, my family, my nation, my people. So I think even in the sense of recognizing all encompassing force of the universe, that we are seeds within it, and that relationship between the seeds and the stars and the plants and the trees and the earth and the sky, all are interchangeable and everlasting. So I think the driving force is the spiritual journey of going home. And home is basically the journey itself. And so I recognize freedom as being vulnerable, being open, being authentic to your own heart and your own spirit, and being guided by that. So being driven by your spirituality is an important part of freedom. Even to love, in order to love, one person cannot be addicted to the other, cannot be controlled or manipulated or utilized or be solely obligated to the other, because that is that's a form of enslavement. So in order to truly love, one has to be free. So in that sense, to me, freedom has a priority over love, because one who's addicted or enslaved or owned by other is not free to even enjoy, witness, experience love. So I guess I'm mumbling now. I'm going to stop at this moment and say that just in summary, that I see the term freedom as being a slogan or a call or an idea that has motivated people to move beyond where they are. But I also see it as a reality in the sense that within everyone, you have a journey and a course pursuit, and that freedom exists within you through the power of that inner force, that spirit. And so it's ever-changing, everlasting, ever-enduring practice to help us become more aware and more conscious of freedom. Stop it! Stop it! I went all about.
That was good.